My name's Subterranean, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back to Conan Exiles. Now, I wanted to go and continue building on some stuff that I've been doing for a while now, but whilst doing that, because just seeing me place blocks and things like that is probably not going to be the most entertaining of videos, I wanted to go through the community letter that came out a couple of days ago, because not only does it have possibly a couple of interesting little tidbits of information, as well as a couple of kind of interesting pictures of stuff that's to come, but also it seems to give us a bit more of a timeline for when we can expect stuff to turn up and what we can expect and how it's all going to pan out. So to begin with, the first hint seemed the maybe it's just me picking up on it because I've read a reasonable amount of Conan, and I know a fair amount about Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan, and so I'm reading into it. Could very well be that, but if it is something more, if it's something more interesting and legitimate, then, I called it. But we'll get on to, why don't you want to go there? Strange. Let's get rid of you because I didn't mean to put you here. But the first thing is that he calls us Jan Zarek, the guy that's in charge of the Conan community stuff and who does all of the community newsletters and things, and who's on the stream with Joe Bylos and occasionally Oscar, who when they're going through stuff, showing off new features and talking about things. The way he addresses us is Chthonian flesh pools, which might just be him being, for want of a better word, cute. But for those of you that don't know, Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft were they used to write to each other a lot, and they used to kind of share ideas and things, and that's where an element of some of the monsters, creatures, religions, things like that in certain elements of Conan came from, because he was part of kind of Lovecraft's pen pal group almost. And so as a result, the Chthonian thing and where that kind of came from was very Lovecraft inspired. I don't think they were actually properly named as like a Chthonian race or a Chthonian set of creatures until the 1960s, I think, in work that wasn't wholly Lovecraft focused, considering that Lovecraft had been dead by that point for a long time. But they were supposed to be kind of worm-like creatures with tentacled faces, and so it's interesting to have him call us that. Part of me hopes that maybe we'll see either kind of maybe not a desert worm kind of thing, but considering one of the new biomes that we're going to be moving to at some point soon is a jungle biome, having a kind of angry cephalopoidal kind of jungle worm thing coming after us. Sounds interesting to me, at least. But then, so there's potential thing there, probably nothing, but something I just wanted to mention in case people didn't know about it. But then the first thing that he goes into saying is that because they are launching on the 8th of May, for those of you that didn't know that either, even though it's been plastered everywhere, this month they are looking at having to do all of the certification work and stuff for things that will actually be on the game discs, especially for I would imagine console more than PC, considering PC, I would imagine the bulk of their PC sales have come from places like Steam. So, could very well be that they're going to release in a kind of material form for PC as well, but we'll have to see. I don't know why things aren't snapping into this gap here. Strange. I'll have to address that later. But yeah, as a result, he said, they're going to have to do an awful lot more work on that, because obviously anything that comes after this point in development, if they're having to do the certifications and things now, so that the guys that are in charge of the consoles or running things through PC are happy to have them certified and sorted out, then that might mean that there'll be a slowdown in certain areas of development, because obviously they're going to have to direct people towards that job, towards that task. But it's one of those things, and we'll. He claims in the letter that it'll affect them, but probably won't affect us all that much. Why is it snapping there now? And it just means some overtime and late nights and early days for them, as it were. So that's interesting. But then they've said that they've thrown out a patch for PC, whereby they fixed a whole load of bugs, and they've also seemingly apparently reduced falling damage, which I did notice as I kind of travelled up here. As it happens, it was a lot less lethal to fall off stuff as I was travelling, which, good to me. I feel like that's related to some other stuff that they've done, which we'll talk about in a second. Because the next thing that they go into in terms of the way that they've been, or what they've been developing since the beginning of the new year, includes the new combat system. And one of the things with the new combat system, they go into saying that they've had one huge kind of like all hands on deck play test. I think I've got another stack down here. But they've had one full kind of all hands on deck play test of the new combat system, and they're hopeful that they're going to be getting us a build either to test live or to go more live to the full version of the game by mid-February, so probably late February for release into the full game if all goes well there. At which point that'll be interesting. And what they've said is that yes, they've tidied up the parts of the combat system that they were already talking about, that they've already put into the game in one form or another, where it's heavy and light attacks and attacks consuming stamina and being able, so you're not just rushing in blindly, blocking and staggering for counter attacks and things like that. But then the new combat system adds things like improved system for staggering people, so that you've actually got maybe more control over when you stagger them and when you faint away, or when you move in and out of combat through staggering someone. You have to see what that actually means in terms of a better system for staggering. But then we've also got status effects that they talk about or have talked about before, including things like bleeding, sundering, knocking down, launching people. And I feel like the launching people is probably the reason why we've seen the scale down on falling damage, because if any of you guys played Age of Conan, then I'm sure you guys remember how certain classes, certain abilities, like I always seem to remember the bear shaman using a club and being able to kind of knock people off things, and how that would potentially be a death sentence for anybody, whether they were wholly engaged in combat or whether they were just taken unawares and knocked off their feet. And so I think that may very well be where we're seeing them now take a look at the fall damage, which they did scale up a fair amount, so you couldn't jump off every surface and land moderately safely with some health loss. Now, as you guys saw in the last video where I was climbing up stuff and testing out the flexibility armor mods, or armor upgrades, it was a case of, I wasn't really falling what would necessarily be all that far, but I was still kind of getting hit pretty hard by the falling damage come my unfortunate landing. So it's gonna be kind of interesting to see kind of how far the system kind of further informs the launching staggering, what bleeding effects and sundering effects actually mean. You know, sundering effects especially sound interesting to me because it's like if you're heavily armored and making yourself hard to kill, but you can, you know, you've not taken much in the way of strength necessarily to impact your enemy's health so much. You're just trying to build like a tank, trying to build to survive. Lots of stamina, lots of, god damn it, lots of health and the ability to wear heavy armor and all that kind of thing. Then, you know, there's the potential for a kind of out survival build, which, you know, as someone that plays tanks in a lot of games and so on, sounds good to me, where if I could build up my resistance to damage and hold out against an enemy for a long period of time, whilst also kind of dropping out their ability to defend themselves, you know, breaking their armor more swiftly, or lowering their damage resistance on that piece of armor for a set period of time with a debuff. You know, that sounds fun to me. That sounds good. That sounds like an interesting way to play, especially considering the way that the combos might roll together. You know, or having a character that is purely based around attrition, where you don't do an awful lot of damage, but you drop bleeding on people again and again and again and again until eventually they just bleed out. You know, death by 1,000 paper cuts, as it were. That sounds interesting to me as well. You know, all of these potentials for different styles of play. Obviously, we've still got the perk system that hasn't turned up yet for us to take a look at. So potentially they'll all be rolled together and it'll be very interesting. But they've also said that they're looking at making weapons feel different. So we're going to have more in the way of kind of daggers being quick and being able to either, I assume, attack faster or move in and out of combat more quickly. Maybe their attacks costing less stamina than other weapons, purely so that you can get in and out at a greater speed for dodging and things, and so that you actually have the access to that extra stamina that would be left over, so you can move in and out of combat swiftly and effectively, instead of getting kind of stuck somewhere just because you've been engaged in combat for a little bit longer than you would have liked. You know, there's an element of strategic play to it, which, I mean, you can stay there, but fuck you. There's an element of strategic play to it that I like the idea of, but obviously we're going to have to see how it kind of turns up in practice, how the combos will actually work, whether it will just be mouse button presses in certain combinations, or whether it will be directional. I'm personally hoping for directional, because I've always had fun with kind of, oh, well, I'm going to move in this direction whilst swinging, and it's changed my attack type. It changed the animation. It's changed the thing that's actually happened as a result of me making that attack. You know, I've enjoyed that in other games, so there's a part of me that kind of hopes for more of that in this one. But obviously, as said, we'll have to see. But apparently, mid-February to the end of February seems to be our timetable for the new combat system, the changes and improvements to it, which, you know, we can hope will be a good thing. Again, they've not actually mentioned a lock-on again, even a soft lock-on. So, and I was personally hoping that they wouldn't go for a lock-on system myself. So I'm kind of glad that they're looking towards still having that element of skill and aiming and kind of paying attention to your environment to kind of engage in combat rather than not. Which, you know, I've had a little bit of PvP in my own time, not an awful lot. I'm not a big PvP player anyway. I'm much more looking forward to PvE elements, which we can get into, which are the next thing that they talk about, where they talk about the new Jungle Biome. And there are a couple of pictures in this article as well of seemingly the new jungle biome with a big kind of demonic spider-like creature, which looks kind of interesting. But then also they've got a screenshot in here of the kind of entryway to the new dungeon that's going to be turning up in the volcanic area, which, you know, is through over that way somewhere. The entrance probably being just there, so, you know, I'm hoping that we've established this base in a good place for that, as much as for further tests that I'll want to run eventually as this thing gets more fully built. Whoops. But then the other thing that they've started talking about is that there are going to be connections between the jungle biome and the frozen north here via subterranean tunnels. Now, the interesting thing is, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the entrance to the tunnel system, and so part of it leads off that way into the volcano, and then the other part, if we look at the map here for a second, so if we're here, you've got this route that leads in here, and then we've got one that leads straight in, and then I wouldn't be surprised if there was one that leads round this bottom kind of corner here and comes out either here or over on this side somewhere, for us to enter into the jungle biome, which I can only assume is going to be this area here, which, if it spans all the way down to here, that's going to be pretty sizable. Like, the Exiled Lands is big, and the frozen north is sizable. I mean, I believe this is 70% of the size of what we've got down here. But if you're looking at this, depending on how far it extends off to the edge, like, we've got a bit of a border here. But let's say that we've got about the same border on the other side. That's still a sizable amount of play space. And we've got the stuff that the Pirate Queen told us about, old human-like settlements out there, and rather unsurprisingly, there's mention of that in the newsletter this week, because they show off another picture of the head of a what was she called? She's called the Witch Queen, and her society was apparently the group of people that settled out there and made sure that, well, I say made sure, that took over that place, but they got wiped out in the cataclysm, or a cataclysm. It's not particularly clear. It says destroyed in a great cataclysm long ago. So whether or not we'll see the remnant of that of their race as undead, or as the creatures and things that they've left behind, you know, the Exiled Lands, the Frozen North, and whatever this new jungle biome comes to be known as, all seem to be this odd mess of places that were built a long time ago and then destroyed in horrible fashion. Whoops. So, you know, we're probably going to see some interesting stuff out there. I'm hoping we do, at any rate. We'll have to see. And then, you know, it's the thing that interests me is the underground tunnels, because if there are underground tunnels up here leading from one zone to another and into the volcano area where we'll find the dungeon, then I'm kind of interested to see, because we've got a whole load of other caves that so far seem to have kind of entryways in that have just been blacked out. They've not had anything there for us to interact with or for us to move into. Like, there's a cave full of imps all the way down in the Exiled Lands somewhere, where they basically just have left these big open black empty slabs in the kind of space that they've got, and like, they seem to be maybe burrows that the imps come out of, but then they don't actually come out of them. They seem to be entryways of some sort, but we can't go through them. You know, up until a certain point, the Dregs dungeon was just a black kind of slab that you couldn't really interact with. And so, you know, I'm interested to see whether or not we actually kind of get hold of something interesting, whereby we can travel through those tunnels from one side of the map to the other, just through, you know, all of these places that we've already got that have had no real attachment or purpose or use. So I'm going to be probably having an explore of those tunnels as soon as they become available to us. As I'm sure you guys would expect from me by now. Bug fixes and things, we've got people saying we've got them talking about how they are working through stuff and how they work through their process rather than actually what they're working on. And then they've been dealing with the new heads-up display, the new menus and things, which apparently have occasionally been causing not necessarily problems, but bugs and glitches. You know, I'm come across a couple of things where my UI hasn't always updated properly, or has got stuck or something like that. So, you know, I'm not surprised that there are a couple of bugs. It was a new kind of shift as they went about creating it. So, you know, there's that. I want to... There. No? Okay. Fine. Let's hop back down. But then we move on to what the art team are apparently working on. And one of the things that they're working on is a bonus for everyone that got the game preview or the early access version of the game, which is the King Conan's Royal Armour from Age of Conan, which, you know, sounds fun, sounds good to me. I can't remember what that armour was. I think it was the black patterned armour that was in all of the images of Conan where he's just sat on his throne. I think that's the armour that they're talking about, but obviously we'll probably see at some point soon. But obviously there's going to be a female equivalent of it and whatever else, so they're working on that certainly. In addition to apparently also making improvements to hair, skin textures, and other such things as they go. So we've got an interesting lot of art bits and pieces, and apparently their creature artist is also working on the avatars for the next two gods. So in terms of the avatars for the next two gods, I reckon one of them is going to be Zotli, because that was one that was in Age of Conan, and it's one that I'm actually looking forward to, especially in potential relation to the sorcery system. So, you know, I wouldn't say I've got my hopes up, but I am looking forward to seeing what they come up with, especially considering that all the god avatars so far, in my opinion, have been pretty awesome in the way that they look and stuff like that. So, you know, we'll have to see how that goes, but apparently their creature artist is working on the next two to come, and then I imagine that'll be it. But then I also have a feeling that there are going to be some additions to the religion system anyway, considering some of the comments that Joel Bylos has made in the past. But then also, you know, that this well, it would have been yesterday, considering that I'm doing this now, but they had another chill live stream where they were kind of trying to get the Secret World community dev to learn how to play, not community dev, community manager, to learn how to play Conan Exiles. So I'm sure that'll be interesting. I'll probably catch up with it at some point. Unfortunately, I didn't watch it at the time. So, you know, there's that. But otherwise, guys, to me, all of this sounds interesting. It sounds like, in terms of the stuff that we're looking at for the next little while, so we're looking at kind of the combat system coming in. We've got the attribute perks, and then on top of that we've got the new biome, new dungeon, and all that good stuff. That, in theory, you know, if they're showing more screenshots of it, you know, if we look at what they did with the Frozen North, they started showing us a whole load of stuff, and then it was a month, maybe two at most, before we got that. So I would imagine that this time we're probably maybe not going to see it be that long. but we are probably, let's fill that in. We're probably going to see it sometime soon. Obviously, the combat system they said is going to be sometime in the kind of the middle of February. But then on top of that, we've got other stuff to look forward to in addition, which would be the perk system and the other bits and pieces around kind of character customization and how that all meshes together. So I'm sort of sure that will give us some interesting kind of things to look at and things to work on. God damn it. For a while before the new biome and things come to pass. But I'm looking forward to all of it. I have said this before, probably a good number of times to be fair, but this is one of the reasons that I enjoy early access games in various ways, because it's a case of I get to come in and take a look at a game that's not finished, but also I get to watch the development of it. I get to see what's happening. I potentially get my feedback listened to, which I've thrown my feedback towards Funcom, both in videos and also in terms of when they had their player surveys and other things that they were going and doing there. I've been able to actually pitch in, make my voice heard, granted within the framework that they've allowed me, but it's something. It allows me to have my say, and if enough people agree with me, as has been the case in a lot of different ways throughout this whole process, we've been successful in kind of getting more of what we want, which is good, which is nice, And Funcom, I have enjoyed their games for a long time. I've enjoyed the way that they operate for a long time, and with their rebranding and the extra transparency that they've put forward, including dumping stuff like their financials and things kind of up on YouTube for us to take a look at whenever and however we wish. It's an interesting and really solid approach that they seem to be taking, and I can only applaud them for it. But as a result, guys, if this is what we're looking at, I'm guessing that we're probably going to see combat and possibly perks over the next couple of weeks. Maybe leaving those until combat so that they can look at how all those things interact together. And then after that, we're probably going to see kind of the new biome and then the other systems that are more complex, that we're building off things. Because I would imagine that as we saw with the Frozen North, where we saw the improved AI for humanoid combatants and things like that in the kind of first phase of upgrades that they made, I would imagine that we're probably going to see some more of that with more new enemy types coming in the jungle biome and in the volcano. So, hopefully we'll see some improvements to that, where the game has been not lacking necessarily, but where it's been a case of, yes, that's what we want. That's one of the things that we need next. We need to see the improvements to the AI, to the way that things are functioning, so that we can kind of have some kind of challenge in regards to who and what we're fighting. So I'm hopeful and looking forward to seeing the end result of these things, and I'm guessing that the biome may very well be coming out kind of maybe not soon, but next month, next couple of months. I would guess probably the beginning of March, if the combat system is what's going to be rolling out for February. And then hopefully towards the end of this month we start to see more of the perks and things that they were talking about, so that then we can actually start taking a look at how they would help us customize our character and how they'll interact with other things. But otherwise, guys, I know this wasn't maybe the most interesting video to watch, but this to me seems like one of the more interesting community letters of the new year, and so I wanted to take a look at it. I wanted to have a chat about it, because I'm excited for the new combat system. I'm excited for them to have kind of the core of the game be the combat and the world map and things like that all kind of in place, so that then they can start developing those other systems, the purge, the sorcery system, mounts, pets, the settlement system for kind of telling your minions, telling your thralls what to do and getting them to work for you at chopping down lumber, killing animals, patrolling. You know, I'm looking forward to and kind of hopeful for all of that. But obviously we'll have to see how it goes, because there's a part of me that goes, Funcom have said that they want to do all of this stuff, and I believe that they do. I have no reason to disbelieve them when they say that this is what they want to manage. But they do still now, you know, 8th of May isn't that far off anymore. We've got, what, 3 and a bit months, 3.5 months, something like that. So, you know, that's not too much time to get potentially a lot of stuff done. So I'm a little worried that we won't see everything at launch, but then again, I'm hoping that if we don't see everything at launch, the pressure will come off the devs because they will have launched the game, and then they can take more time polishing the game post-launch, and then they can make sure that all those other features that we want, like mounts and like the purge and like all manner of other bits and pieces, pets. I want a pet panther. I said that before. I will say it again. I want to go out there, tame a panther, and bring it home with me. So I'm hoping that all of those things, if they don't make it in for launch, then we'll see them come in at a more polished and better stage later, rather than seeing them rushed into the early access version to then be polished up afterwards. You know, if they started doing something more kind of shitty in terms of going, oh well, yeah, we didn't manage to get into the main game, and so now what we're going to do is charge you extra for it, that would bug me. What I'm hoping for is that they will try and honour all of the things that they have mentioned in the roadmap that Joel Bylos put out kind of last year, and then subsequent to that, if they need more money, if they, you know, I feel they've done a pretty good job so far, and that there's still a lot of potential here. So, you know, if they needed more money and they actually put in some stuff that was easy for them to do, but stuff that they were that they wanted to charge additionally for it, then there's a chance that I may very well go, yeah, do you know what, that would be worthwhile. I don't know, not necessarily any of the systems that they mentioned so far, but having access to other tools maybe, or having the ability to gain extra customizations and things through small DLC packs of like a $5 a time for a set of various bits and pieces, that wouldn't bother me. It's cosmetic, it wouldn't be a loot box or anything like that. I'd know what I was getting, I'd buy it, or I might not buy it, depends what it looked like to me. But you know, I wouldn't mind them doing that, as long as they didn't start, like if they said, oh, the Purge DLC is now $5 to $10 or something like that, that would make me kind of raise an eyebrow, considering I think there are better things that they could do, and that's been part of their roadmap for a while seemingly. You know, but I hope that we'll see all of it. I'm just worried that it's not all going to be there for launch, and then it just comes down to how Funcom decides to handle the fact that it won't be there for launch. Also, if any of you are wondering why I've got so many shrines all in one place, it's because if I try and place a new map marker, then, oh, have they changed it now? Have I discovered a thing? Where's the hold on, where's the keep? Keep. Back keep. Ha! I no longer have a limit on the number of things that I can stick on the map. Can I do some more? I can do some more. Oh, that's amazing. But yeah, the reason why I had all these shrines up here was to go, yes, this is the extent of this settlement. because as you guys will have seen in previous videos, there was a time when I just wasn't able to go and put any more map markers down, which was a bit of a shame. But that seems to have been removed. We've just found out another thing. Thank you, Funcom, for removing that limit. At the very least in single player, considering that it's all just saved to my stuff rather than anything else. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think about these potential new changes, about the new combat system, about the new biome, what you're hoping for from it. You know, we've had a very sparse biome down south that seems to be quite conflict focused. We've got one up here that's much more environmentally focused with collections of enemies in different places. More explorable stuff everywhere. Are you looking forward to the new dungeon? Do you like the sound of lizard men in a volcano that you get to go and smack around? And are you thinking that maybe, because one of my theories is that the Witch Queen and her ruins might play into, as much as the Stygian guy that I can never remember the name of, who's the Setite priest who talks about spells and unlocking your magical potential. Metcamosis, that's the one. Is it, you know, are you thinking that maybe there's a good chance that the Witch Queen's place will be tied into the sorcery system as well? I'm hoping that it is. You know, if we've got star metal crafting up here, and we've got basic crafting and things down in and religion especially down in the in the exiled lands, then having sorcery out in the jungle area makes sense to me. It means you've got this division. It means you've got this reason to explore. So, you know, what do you think on that? Me throwing out random things at the end of the video. But anyway, let me know what you guys think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.